In the studio with us, Kamal Prasad with the Compassionate Living Outreach. How are you this morning?
I'm well. Thank you for inviting me.
It's our pleasure. And I met Kamal at Sustainability Day at the community garden where we won the washing machine.
All right.
By the way, my daughter Eden filled out the right card, and probably cost more for the city attorney to give me the okay that I could have it than the washing machine. They bill at a pretty good rate.
Yeah.
But it's going to be ours, and we're going to go out and pick it up this week, and it's pretty cool.
All right. So why don't you tell us about the Compassionate Living Outreach, Kamal?
So Compassionate Living Outreach is based out of Santa Rosa. It's made up of a group of volunteers who advocate for a plant-based lifestyle. And for various different reasons, different people come to the organization for, from different angles, I guess. I came into to be part of Compassionate Living Outreach because I was really interested in getting the word out about the animal agriculture's effects on climate change. I think that, it's not talked about enough in media or even by our leaders who are pushing for expensive solutions like solar panels and electric cars, and all those great things are great, but they're outside the reach of most people. They can't just go out. I can talk passionately about like how important it is that we fight global warming, and we need to do something about it, and get your listeners all like worked up. But like are they gonna go buy solar panels to put on their roofs tomorrow, or they're going to buy electric cars? I mean, most people can't afford those solutions that is pushed so heavily by our leaders. But everybody has to eat. And climate change, the animal agriculture's effect on climate change is huge. A report came out in 2006 by United Nations, which says that animal agriculture is responsible for more greenhouse gas emissions than all modes of transportations combined. Put all the cars, trains, planes, boats, trucks together, and it won't make as big of a deal as if people started not eating animal products.
And it's just because of the production of meat. Beef is what I guess you're talking about mostly. It's the production, or it's just the presence of the animals themselves and what they produce.
Both of them. The production, yes, definitely. The biggest part of the greenhouse gas emissions comes from the production. For example, 80% of all the corn grown in the United States is fed to livestock. Cows, pigs, and chickens. If we fed the amount of grains suitable for human consumption to people directly instead of feeding them to animals first, we would be able to feed 800 million people. And of course, the animals themselves, they produce gases like methane, which is 20 times more potent than CO2 at trapping heat in our atmosphere. Even more problematic is nitrous oxide, which is 300 times more potent than CO2 at trapping heat in the atmosphere. 65% of nitrous oxides, man-made nitrous oxides, comes from animal agriculture. And nitrous oxide lasts over 100 years in our atmosphere before it disintegrates. And you mentioned beef. Yeah, well, per animal, cows emit the most amount of greenhouse gases. But of the 10 billion animals killed in the U.S. alone, 9 billion of them are chickens. And chickens, they like to poop a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They don't produce a
Good
lot.
Good choice of words.
It's a family show.
No, poop is good.
No,
it's the
good.
other one that starts with an S.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. So anyway, chickens create a lot of like waste, and they don't produce a lot of methane. But 9 billion chickens making all that nitrous oxide. So yeah, you hear a lot about again, cows in the media. Like, so when they do talk about the role of animal agriculture as effect on climate change, they'll talk about cows, methane, and all that stuff. But 9 billion chickens every year, producing all that nitrous oxide, 300 times more potent than CO2 versus 20 times for methane, that adds up.
So it sounds like what you're trying to do. I mean, my whole life there have been a lot of, here are your arguments for vegetarian or vegan lifestyle. It sounds like what you're bringing to that is, and here's another major issue about it, that its impact on climate change. Would that be sum up a lot of what Compassionate Living Outreach is working on there?
Well, again, like I said, there are people in Compassionate Living Outreach who are more in it for the health reasons. Healthcare costs are like skyrocketing, and by switching to a plant-based diet, people live healthier and they don't have to, visit the doctor as much. There are people who are in it in Compassionate Living Outreach for animal rights issues. Over 98% of animals raised for food in the U.S. Come from factory farms. People like to think like, oh yeah, I'm like buying humane meat. I mean, that's sort of like an oxymoron, and I'm so anyway, yeah. So Compassionate Living Outreach is not only about animal agriculture and environment, but that's sort of my passion. I became a vegetarian when I learned, that you could feed like 6 times the number of people with the food that you use to feed animals to make food for one person. And as I learned more about it, I was vegetarian for a long time, and after a while I learned that even that is not very sustainable. For example, it takes 900 gallons of water to make 1 gallon of milk, compared to 200 gallons of water to make 1 gallon of wine. So when we're driving down the highway and we see the sprinklers going off in vineyards, people, and I have neighbors who say this, like, wow, look at, vineyards suck water, right? For example, I've seen signs like that. They're very wasteful. But the things that go inside, those farms, where dairy cows are raised, so again, 900 gallons of water for 1 gallon of milk compared to, 200 for wine, and who drinks a gallon of wine a week, right?
Whereas in Sonoma, you'd be surprised.
So where can people get information about your Compassionate Living Outreach ideal?
Well, we have a website, compassionatelivingoutreach.org is the website. People can go there and they can find out all the different, reasons for picking a plant-based lifestyle. It's good not only for their own health, for the planet, it's a huge deal, and for the sake of the animals. 98%, like I said, comes from factory farms, and anybody who's seen a movie like Earthlings, knows like these animals suffer greatly in these factory farms.
So
well, and there's also like these places, these gigantic pig facilities, the runoff and wastewater is just mind-boggling.
Right. Yeah. Like the runoff from these farms, they're creating dead zones in our rivers. Like every year, like thousands of fish will wash up on the shores, and it's because of all the nitrogen and ammonia that ran into the water, created like a whole bunch of algae that sucked up out all the oxygen from the atmosphere, the water.
Right. And did we give out the website and
CompassionateLivingOutreach.org?
That is correct.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kamal, Prasad, thanks very much for coming.
Do you have one more
Mornings
thing you
in
want to get
Sonoma
out
today?
Right. There is a project my friend and I are working on. It's called Operation Missing Link. Al Gore is putting on a project of his own called the Climate Reality Project in September, where he'll be talking about how bad global warming is and what we need to do about it. And while he admits that animal agriculture is a huge part of climate change, he doesn't talk about it openly. And so we're trying to create a project called Operation Missing Link to get him to start talking to people about that. And so if people are interested in finding out more about that, I encourage them to visit peoplepoweredpeace.org, all one word, peoplepoweredpeace.org, and they can find out about Operation Missing Link. And if they're willing to lend their voice, you don't have to be a vegan or vegetarian to participate. We've had other people who have shown interest and participated in
That's
that.
an interesting approach. You're targeting one man who in turn will target a much larger audience.
Right. He has a big influence. His movie, when it came out, The Inconvenient Truth, has a huge impact, right? Like, people were really like, oh, yeah, I'm going to start saving my pennies for, my hybrid car or solar panels and stuff like that. I mean, I was like that at the time because I hadn't learned the full effect of animal agriculture, and so people pay attention to him. And, when he neglects to talk about the simplest thing that anyone can do starting immediately to lessen their impact on the environment, people think, oh, it's not that big of a deal because Elgo isn't talking about it. So Elgo needs to talk about it, and that's
All
what
right.
we're
So
trying to do.
peoplepoweredpeace.org,
That's correct.
livingoutreach.org.
Yes.
Thank you very
All right,
much, Kamal
thanks.
Prasad, for coming in today.
All
It's
right.
Mornings in Sonoma on Sonoma Sun FM 91.3.